Hi everyone, Mitch from SportsChatPlace.com and PickDogs.com. It is Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th, 2020. Of course, still no word about a firm start date on sports, though. We do have like a little trickling of sports coming in here. Korean baseball starting last night. Massive response. It's like, this is how desperate people are for sports. And I think when people see the response to Korean baseball, I think that just means that mainstream sports just an arm's length away at this point. Starting to hear, restaurants, things of that nature, even in the big cities, talking about plans of how they're going to reopen and strategizing reopening instead of this panic, And I think it's time to stop panicking and it's time to start getting, back into things. Here in Maui, we're out, and I expect that there's going to be a little bit of a bump, back up of virus cases, but the big number is the deaths, and we're not seeing big bumps in this anymore. And it's like the people that, if you are in danger, if the virus is a particularly, causes these types of threats to you, well, then you need to take those type of precautions. If you're somebody who, in general, is in good health, you're probably okay. And I'm not a doctor, and certainly don't take my advice on something like this. But this is the way that I'm handling it myself. But anyways, we're here to talk about sports. And, of course, yesterday, while we were live, the news came out that Don Shula had passed away. And, of course, I'm from Miami and a Dolphin season ticket holder my whole life. And, guy who had a huge impact on me, both on and off the field. Some of, my childhood memories of meeting Don Shula and meeting some of those old Dolphin players are just some of the greatest memories of my life. Howard Twilley lived in my neighborhood growing up, and if you've been watching these Don Shula tribute shows, you'll see he scored the first touchdown of that Super Bowl against the Redskins during the perfect season. He also, he was kind of that guy who was never going to be a Hall of Famer. It was kind of that possession receiver, just a heck of a nice guy. And I was about 5 years old, and I knocked on his door, and, I was maybe like 7 at the time. And, 72, the Dolphins were on top of the world. I knock on his door. I said, "Can I have your autograph?" And I come back home, and I got my Howard Twilley autograph. He gave me a picture and a football, and he gave me just a bag full of stuff. It was awesome. And, my mother said, "Well, what did he say? What did he say to you?" He said, "Son, your pen doesn't work." And that's kind of like, that was my memory of meeting Howard Twilley. But when I met Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, and Paul Warfield, every time, how they do, things that they don't do anymore. Like when a new a branch of a bank would open, they'd have like a couple Dolphin players there, like Larry Zonka and Jim Kick and Paul Warfield and Don Shula would be there to open the bank and kind of like be there to, sign autographs, and, they'd have some giveaways and stuff, and, meeting these guys. And it's just the way that Don Shula ran things. It was just always a classy organization. But I'm going to bring in Steve Monahan here, and I know that Steve has some Don Shula memories. He's a Cowboy fan, so Tom Landry was more of his guy. But I think that Tom Landry, that Don Shula era, different era of coaching than we are today. Don Shula was not a player's coach, okay? We'll get that straight out of the gate here. Don Shula was not like a guy who hung out with the guys. And, he was a guy who was respected by his players and gave his players respect when they earned it. But Don Shula was a harsh disciplinarian and one of these guys that will cut you right on the practice field. And, and his record, though, of what that type of environment produced is still the record. I believe Bill Belichick has got it in sight as far as total wins. There's a few circumstances in there that help Belichick along, most of it being that he's played in a lot longer seasons than Don Shula played in. Don Shula, when he started coaching, the season, I believe, was 11 games, and then it went to 14 games. And very little of his career was even in the 16-game schedule. So he just didn't have the length of seasons. And I believe even before the 11 game, it might have even been less than that, back in his earlier days with the Colts. So it's kind of like he had the teams to put up those kind of numbers. He has the championships, and he has certainly the playoff appearances. He has all those things. But, we're not going to take away anything from Bill Belichick and his 6 Super Bowls. But we are going to say that, Don Shula's record it shows, multi-generation. So, Steve, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I was saddened by the news yesterday. Heard it in the morning. To your point, your Howard Twilley story. You and I are the same age, so I'm 55. My first memory really of Don Shula being a Cowboy fan was the '71 Super Bowl, Cowboys and the Dolphins. The Cowboys, won 24-3. Bob Lilly had a big day. Staubach had a big day, but that was probably the best thing for the Dolphins because obviously the following season, the perfect season comes on. But Don Shula, you and I eat, breathe, and love football, college and pro. But Don Shula is one of the absolute icons. Fond memories of Don Shula. I know everything about his career. Got hired at 33, by the Colts, etc. And on and on. 347 victories later. I got so many Don Shula memories. I mean, obviously, I didn't grow up in Miami and met Larry Zonka and things like that. But, the Dolphins were always on. The Super Bowls, obviously, the perfect season we talked about. But even the following season when they pounded the Vikings, and won those back to back,
I think they
you
were a
know,
better team that year. I do.
I
I think
actually,
I think
what I
they're
did
a more
too.
dominant team.
I do. I think they were too.
And
Absolutely.
and the next year to go for four consecutive Super Bowls, basically the Buffalo Bills, but with a lot of wins because that you know the the 32-2 run, of 72 and 73, they had made it to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. They had lost in
Yeah.
71. They had made it 3 years in a row, which is even in today's standards is a tremendous feat. And then you know they the next year was the Clarence Davis play. Was the
That's
next
right.
year. Was the next
That's
year. And
Yep.
and the thing about that one is, even when you look back at 72, and they showed the film yesterday of Earl Morrall, if you watched any of it, Earl Morrall being pulled out of the game. If you notice that championship game, that was the week after the Immaculate Reception. And the thing about that game is, if you notice, the Dolphins are 15-0 at that point. Going into that game, there was no wild card round. There was a wild card team, but not a wild card round. And if you look at that game, they're in Pittsburgh at 15-0, a team in Miami, from Miami, playing in like 20-degree weather or like 10-degree weather in Pittsburgh. There was no home field advantage back then in the playoffs. And it was the same thing the next year when on the Clarence Davis play when the lob into I still am not even sure what happened to this day. We lost, but that was the last game. Of course, the World Football League and Zonka and Kick and Morris all left the team after that year, and it was never quite the same. But
Right.
but the thing is that was kind of their last chance. And I remember Larry Zonka being basically, it was the first time I'd ever seen him. I mean, you see him mad and whatever, but it was the first time I ever seen him throw his helmet. It's like, he was mad,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
so John Shula, and, I think other things that we talk about here, I don't want to, everyone knows the Don Shula story, and there's better historians of Don Shula than me or Steve, right? There's better guys than us, but I know that, I think that you see coaches now that are so egomaniacs, and I think Shula had an ego. And I mean, there's an article on ESPN, today where, one of the reporters said, yeah, the '98 Yankees were perfect, were just basically the perfect team, and Don Shula just got furious at the guys. It was just like, no, perfect is not losing a game, and
Right.
that is, there's a reason why nobody does it. It's so hard. It's like, I mean, how many times have we been, everyone out there that bets on sports, how many times have we been in a lock, circle, win game that we've lost? I mean, it happened. It's just crazy bounces happen, and over the course of a season, I mean, it's the Patriots came so close But a guy catches the ball on the side of his helmet. Eli Manning wins is in the playoffs. How weird is this? It's like for the second.
I got a story from yesterday. So Mitch knows my brother Tom. I got a big family. I'm the youngest of seven, and Tom's a big Giant fan. So he called me, and a couple of my brothers called me about Don Shula. But he relayed a story. To your point on David Tyree, is they were at a restaurant bar. I think it was the night before the Super Bowl. So my brother goes to the Giant Super Bowls, and lo and behold, who happens to be right next to them at the bar comes in Don Shula. So my brother and a couple friends actually got the opportunity to talk to Shula, and he couldn't have been more gracious as for my brother. But the point is, he said, and Mitch knows my brother Tom. He went right up to Shula and said, "Listen, Coach, we're going to knock them off tomorrow." Meaning, New England is undefeated, and if New England wins, right, then the Dolphins have company. And Don Shula turned to my brother and said, "That's exactly what I wanted to hear," right? Because that perfect season is the only perfect season, and it means an awful lot.
It's an amazing thing because it's like it's never been done before. It was never done before, and it's never been done since. And
right.
We're talking great teams. We're talking a long time, and a lot of teams have had cracks at it. And we talk about teams like in college. It's rare, for teams to run the table and to go perfect. We're talking teams. There's no FCS opponent, for week 3 in the NFL. Everyone can play at the NFL level, and that's why you see these things, And the Bears, the year that they went to the Super Bowl and lost to Peyton Manning, they were undefeated late in the season. The Dolphins got a crack at them at Soldier, as 16-point dogs and beat them outright. It was
85 Bears,
same thing.
Dolphins beat them that year, but
they beat them both times.
The Bear team was no joke, and one of the San Francisco 49er teams, I think, only had one loss, if I remember correctly. But, back to Don Shula, obviously he's well known for that era, but let's give him credit, too. Takes him to the Dolphins to the Super Bowl in the early 80s. You lose to the Redskins, but he rebuilt that roster. And then, even after that, draft Marino, and gets them to the Super Bowl, and they wind up losing to San Francisco. So people would look at Don Shula and say, "Oh, well, he was only 2-4 in Super Bowls." He was the coach of the Colts against Namath and things like that. But Don Shula, from the competition committee after he retired, everything. I mean, top 5 icon in all of NFL history. I got it.
Yeah, I think in sports history, he's up in that discussion. He's in that John Wooden discussion.
Right.
He's in that Bear Bryant. He comes from the Bear Bryant line of coaching. He was an assistant under Bear Bryant, and it was like.
Right.
So there's the lines, right? The coaching lines, and we're going to wrap up in just a second, bringing Chris and Rod, but. There's the coaching lines, and we see the Bill Parcells line of Bill Belichick, and he's had a lot of duds out there, too. The Andy Reid line, which has been really, really good, right? And then, but there was the Don Shula line, there's the Jimmy Johnson line, of coaching. And, one day we'll look at some of the things on my bookshelf here. It's fun, like if you look over my shoulder here, and I know it's blurred out, but let me see if we can get a clearer picture. There we go. So, frozen. Oh, that's weird. That's not even a good shot of me. Anyways, if you look over my shoulder here, there's a program that says Orange Bowl. It's the 1988 Orange Bowl. It's Jimmy Johnson's national championship game right there. And when you look in that program, the thing is that I like to show people is when you go through, everyone has seen a game program, at least I would think at this point, but I'm taking Steve off. So everyone has seen a game program at this point, but basically it has pictures of every player on the team in an alphabetical order. First there's a roster, in there, and it has by number and all that other stuff, but there's also a picture of every player in that, in there. And when you go through that program right there, there's an NFL player on on every single line of, of the Miami ones. There's NFL players, like almost every player in there is NFL players. But I don't know how I got on that subject. But anyways, I don't know where I was going there. Anyways,
wrap it on Don Shula.
I just think
90 years old.
I think that what we saw from Don Shula is that he wasn't afraid to change, and he wasn't afraid to listen to ideas that weren't his own too, if they were good ideas. And he wasn't afraid to say to call people out, whether you're Larry Zonka or whether you're Jim Delgado. You got called out by Don Shula if he felt that you could do more. And it's like he made his teams better. The Dolphins had 3 wins before he got there. 2 years later, they were getting whipped in the Super Bowl by the Cowboys. 3 years later, they were undefeated. It's like the next year they won the Super Bowl, and in the Super Bowl that Super Bowl against the Vikings, Bob Greasy passed the ball 7 times in the entire game. You look at a team that passed the ball 7 times, had 2,000-yard rushers, Larry Zonka and Murphy Morris, in the 14-game season, right? 2,000-yard rushers in the 14-game season. A quarterback that threw the ball 7 times in the Super Bowl. And that's with a Hall of Fame wide receiver, Paul Warfield, on that team. You fast forward just 12 years later, he's in the Super Bowl again. He's throwing on every single play. It's like, it doesn't matter, it's whatever it takes. And it's like, you don't see some of the coaches today, and this is why the Eagles are bad, right? Because Doug Peterson is it's like, guys, can you see Doug Peterson changing who he is? It's like, you just can't, it's like, there's no way, it's like he doesn't have that ability. But anyway, Steve, thanks, and we'll see you in just a bit for the Sim Picks. We're going to bring in Chris the Puck Dog Ruffalo with us. Chris, good morning. How are things in Canada? I got another back camera angle. There we go. How are things in Canada this morning?
They're good. We're starting to see news of when the lockdown is going to start to be lifted. So we're starting to see signs of progress every day as everything's going on around us. So
I think in order for the NHL to kind of proceed a little bit and to move forward, I think we're going to need to see the lockdown be lifted in Canada. Are we hearing any kind of new news from the NHL as to, like, are they going to maybe play some hockey, or are they just going to? Are you hearing anything at all? Peep?
Well, I'm hearing that it's like we've said before, they're still considering host cities like Toronto and Columbus were being considered in the early going, and now we're looking at maybe BC as well, like out in Vancouver, to be considered as a host city as well. It's just a matter of watching the curve flatten, and I can tell you in Ontario we're starting to see it flatten a little bit, but we're still a little bit of a ways off.
So I know Don Shula is a little bit before your time, so that's why we kind of broke the show up, how we did, and it was kind of like Chris doesn't have any Don Shula memories, and but he was, I just think that you see a guy that definitely transcends sports, but here in the U.S. We're looking at the different sports, and we're hearing mixed messages. First, we have the head of the Big 12 come out and say we should just scrap the season. We had the Notre Dame athletic director say if there's no fans in the stands, well, they shouldn't have college football. I don't know, man. Maybe it just seems that we have just such differing points of view. What do you think about college football with no fans in the stands? Because I watch the UAB games on Tuesday nights or whatever they're on, or even when they're on Saturday afternoons, I'll watch the UAB Blazers. I'm one of the 4 people watching because the stands are empty anyway. I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, you know what? It's something that I can only equate another experience to. As I was watching TV the other night, and they had the Orioles game on from 2015 when they had the Baltimore riots, and there was no one allowed in the stadium. It was eerie just watching these guys play a baseball game with no one in the stands, but it was something that had to be done. And I think it's the same thing that goes with this is that, yeah, it's going to be weird to have no fans in the stadium. And sometimes you can pretty much equate that to negating the home field advantage. But it's something that I think has to be done to sort of maintain some sort of normalcy, maintain some continuity in each of the college sports or professional sports. And, no fans in the stands for a year. Okay, but I mean, it gives us some normalcy with having a college football season go on.
It's going to work both ways too. You have to understand. There you go. But it works both ways. It works both ways. It's like if you don't have the home field advantage, the other team doesn't have the home field advantage when you travel there. And I think neutral sites, that's going to eliminate that as well. But it's like we still have a product. We still have something on the field. And I know that, at Sports Chat Place, you've been covering the sim games. We're going to get to sim games and our picks for today in just a minute. But do you watch these games? And is there anything that we should be looking for, like in betting these sim games?
I mean,
or is it just really flipping a coin?
And I mean, for anyone who reads the sim games on Sports Chat, I say all the time, these games are a coin flip because you can have, let's say you have, Seahawks against the Giants. 9 times out of 10, the Seahawks probably win that game. But this simulation that they stream and the one that counts towards grading your bet could be the one that the Giants win. So it is a coin flip, but a lot of times, I mean, you look for teams that are performing well, like higher rated teams with the higher rated players. But I think at the end of the day, these are still coin flips and they should be treated accordingly.
I have to say I'm not a huge fan of the sim games. It's just I can't get into it. And just like, I know we're covering Korean baseball, we're covering Chinese baseball, Nicaraguan basketball. I'm not even sure what we cover anymore at Sports Chat Place. But I got to say, I'm not a huge fan of most of it. That's for sure. But I don't know what's going on with this camera. But anyways, we'll fix that later. But anyways, we're going to cut over to Rod, bring him in. We're kind of just going to roll through and, we're kind of a work in progress. We're kind of bringing everybody's game up slowly but surely. Chris, slight changes to his production there, and we're going to work on things, and that's what really these shows are about. We know there's no sports betting, and that is our meat and potatoes, but we're going to look at production quality. So if anyone has any comments or any questions or anything that can help us uplift our production of the quality of what you're seeing and hearing, not what we're talking about, because obviously there's no sports betting, and when it comes to picks, that's why millions of people every month watch our show. It's like, but we don't have any picks. Like I could see Chris's background is blurred out, which is good, but it's like it's got like all kinds of glare going on back there. So it's like, good. I see it like when I'm looking at it. It's like, it's like mine is this blue, but I'm not even sure. I have like this blurry background, so it's like this is kind of like a gamer feel that I have going on. My other camera is frozen. My video camera, I am not sure what's wrong with it, why it's freezing like that. It certainly shouldn't be. Do one of these, and then so I want everyone to see what mine looks like there. So people can see the difference. Hi everyone, it's Mitch from Sports Chat Place and PickDogs.com. We're gonna bring Chris back. It's kind of what I was trying to do there. Is I was trying to show everybody the different camera angles, but what happened is, and as I said, we were talking about production quality. I was looking at Chris's background, how it's kind of like glaring there, like how we're gonna have to fix that. But I was trying to show everybody my other camera angle, and this computer that I'm using for our streaming, and I have a new one on the way, couldn't handle the camera change, and it just knocked us right off the air. So, Chris, we're going to bring in Rod, and we'll go over some stuff real quick, and then we'll have you right back for the sim picks.
Sure.
Anyways, Rod, that's what everyone saw there is what I'm talking about and what we need to work on, and that's why we continue to do these shows as we uplift the production quality. Rod will be our next work in progress. as we get there. His lighting, not too bad, but he has a little bit of a shadow. Fix that. It has. I think I know that of the guys, Rod probably has the least equipment there to do it. So we're gonna get him. We're gonna fix him up. But in the meantime, what can we do to fix up sports at this point? I know that you've been doing some horse racing betting. I know that you've been following the Sims games. What has like your betting activity been since the stoppage? Like, obviously we never talk about like how much we all bet on a game or whatever. But say you used to bet on average college basketball or college football Saturday or NFL Sunday is 100%. We'll call that 100%. Like, what percent of that are you betting on this stuff now? Like, is it 5%? Is it 0%? Is it 10%?
Probably lower than that. Probably like 3%. I'm
just pennies.
Maybe $5. $5, $10 a game on a sim game.
Just to have action.
It. Just for fun, right? Just for some action. I am definitely not. You're not trying to make a living off that or making a huge investment. That's for sure. Just because it is a coin flip, anybody can win these games. So why not take a dog for $10?
Yeah, that's where I struggle with these sim games the most. Is that I can't.
Hey.
Everybody has their own. Everybody has their own philosophies of betting and stuff. And for me, it's like, I don't know. It's like I see people like at the craps table and they're yelling. It's like they hit a yo for $5 or something, and it's like, I wish I could get that excited. I wish I could, but I can't. So it's like, for me, it's like I can't go and this is why I can't do the sim games, is because I can't put $5 or $10 on it, because it's just not how I do things. It's like, if I bet $5 or $10, I'm not going to care. It's like, so obviously it's something to pass the time, but I think maybe some of it has to do with that you're in Canada, where you guys are really seriously still quarantined, and still, the weather is probably
not so bad. Not so bad at this end of the country.
How's the weather?
Weather's been nice. Weather's been nice. It's been hot here, 23, 24, 25, nice and sunny. Been windy, but that's normal for prairie wind in the summer. Before it gets really hot, you always get nice wind. But the weather's been nice here. Saskatchewan just opened up their second phase. They started opening businesses back up, and they have 0 cases. So an hour from here over here in Saskatchewan, 0 cases. Where I am, 0 cases. In Alberta, well, we're just going to exclude Calgary, because I don't know what those people are doing. But in Calgary, that's where all the bulk of the cases are in Alberta. So there's no chance they're ever going to play NHL in Calgary. There's just too many idiots there.
Ouch! Hey, that didn't come from me.
That came from me, and I'll take the flak.
I'm not owning that one. We'll pass that one on to Chris Ruffalo.
But
I can't believe Chris said that about Calgary.
And in Edmonton, the numbers are leveled off. And they could easily play NHL in Edmonton, because the arena is attached to 3 hotels, which are attached by pedways. NHL players don't have to go outside to get to the game. There's 2 rinks there, so they can play. There's 2 ice surfaces, and they never have to go outside. So it's like a biodome right there to play NHL. So I think almost 100%, I'm going to say that they're going to play NHL this year in Edmonton as one of the host cities for sure. Because the cases are so low.
Well,
so low.
I'm ready for it, and I think everybody's ready for it. And I think over the next 10 or 15 days, if we don't hear news on some of these, on NBA and NHL and Major League Baseball, I think we might be in trouble. I think MLB might be looking at a half season. And I think what I would love to see from Major League Baseball, and I'm going to bring Steve Monahan back in here for this one too. And you know what? I'll bring in all the guys. What the hell? We'll let Chris in after that Calgary comment. But Steve, how do you like this idea? And let's throw it out there. Commissioner Manfred always has the open line of communication with us, which I love. I use it on a regular basis. Why they gave me their phone number, they're regretting it to this day. But I'll tell you what. How about we call Manfred? Maybe we do it on tomorrow's show or something. Pitch him this.
I'm sure he's changed the number by now.
I'm sure he's got me blocked. But
he's going to say put you on the block list.
I'm sure he does. But how about this? Screw interleague play this year. We just played the regular,
Yeah.
old school.
Yeah. American League, play American League schedule, National League schedule.
Let's get rid of the
two best
DH altogether while we're at it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Let's change everything.
Because I don't know, man. That's a whole other discussion for another day. It's how much easier it is to manage in the American League than it is in the National.
And that's got to be a task if they're, with the scheduling too. I mean, that's probably, it's a little more complicated, I would think, with the shortened season and, who's playing who, when they're playing. I think that's got to be
I think
no joke.
That'll probably be part of that 15 days, that they'll have. I believe that baseball will have a spring training period, and it's probably going to be like a week or so. And somebody mentioned yesterday in the comments, or it might have been yesterday or another day, saying that the NBA was talking about having a one-and-done tournament. And, the NHL mentioned this as well earlier. But I can hardly see at this point where players haven't played for 6 weeks, and it's going to be 2.5 months by the time this happens, with anybody playing, that players will train and you'll get teams together for training to play potentially one game, Chris, you going to train for one game? I mean, you can't do it. I mean, Rod,
I do it all the time.
I'll tell you one place where Rod won't be doing this training, and that's Calgary. Anyways, woo! that was.
Calgary's got like over 85% of the cases in Alberta are in Calgary.
I think it's probably the largest city, It probably has something to do with it. Just like in the United States, New York has the most cases.
They're not even the capital. They're not even the biggest. It's like...
I mean, one thing we don't want to do in the United States, and anyone who's lived in any other state that's nice, like Florida or Hawaii or something like this, we don't want to let those New Yorkers know that we want them to stay there in the big time. Stay there. You stay in the big time. New York is the big time. You go stay in the big time. We'll just sit here in Hawaii and we'll let you guys be the big time. you enjoy yourself. As you can see, I played 36 yesterday and just roasted. Anyways, let's get to some sim picks, Chris. What do we got for today? What did we have yesterday? Oh, yesterday we didn't do it because we didn't have the show. But let's do some sim picks. What do we got for today? So when we do the sim picks, we're doing the Bovada sim picks. Is what we do. So people ask this too. It's the Bovada sim picks. Everyone has sim picks. Everyone's.
Oh yeah.
But go ahead, Chris. What do we got?
I think we're off the air in Calgary.
There's a stampede going on.
Stampede.
No stampede this year. Canceled.
So I guess we won't be selling a lot of premium picks over in Calgary this year.
No.
At 12 Eastern, we got the Browns at the Cardinals. Browns -7, over under 55.
The Browns are really good at this game,
Cardinals,
right?
+7.
The Browns are really good at these games. I'm going to take the Browns.
Yeah.
Cardinals.
Take the Cardinals.
Yeah,
some points.
the Calgary thing could be. I've had a few incidents over the years where, I've had absolute revolts from certain areas of the country or certain fan bases. One was TCU when I picked BYU to beat them. That was the first time I ever received a death threat. Then another one was when I had a writer that called Nick Fairley Chris Farley in an Auburn article that he had to go. He's no longer with us. Immediate, the Auburn fans were just, we expect more of you. You're college football. And it's like, you guys are right. It's got to go. There was that one. And, I think this Calgary comment I think it's right in there.
There's some damage control in Calgary.
I also called for Tommy Bowden to be fired at Clemson when they were ranked 11th in the country in the preseason poll, and I said that they would be unranked and he would be fired by the end of the season. They ripped me apart, and on TigerNet, which is the largest college football forum on the entire internet, Clemson's one. They ripped me apart, but by the end of the season, Dabo Swinney was the coach, and Tommy Bowden was fired, and of course, my Jim Tressel scandal article that I wrote my first year of having college football plays, and how Ohio State was headed for a big scandal at some point. I wasn't sure what it was, and Jim Tressel would be gone. That was, oh man, you would have thought that, I don't know, but not well received, but once again, doesn't mean I'm wrong. Speaking of getting your goose on, Chris, go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of not well received, 3 Eastern, Seahawks at Bears. Seahawks -3, over under 55.
Seattle.
Yeah, I like Seattle -3.
Seahawks.
Yeah, I like Seattle.
I don't know how many people picked up with that "getting your goose on" comment, but that's what Maurice Claret said when he got pulled over. Or that's what he would say in the locker room. Remember, he would say it in the locker room when he was in Denver. It's like, I got to get my. He was drinking Grey Goose in the locker room. Like,
That's right.
I got to get my goose on. It's like, what? The other players were looking at him like, "What are you doing, man?" It's like, this guy, he's got to go.
Yeah.
That's how you get.
He didn't disappoint, that's for sure.
That's how you get run out of the NFL, right there.
That's exactly right. So he didn't disappoint.
Got his goose on. Anyways, Chris, what do we got next?
7 Eastern, 49ers at Panthers. 49ers -6, over under 54.5.
This show is really deteriorating. 49ers against, who are they playing? Panthers?
Panthers. I think the Niners.
49ers, -6.
I got to go Niners.
All right, I'll go with the Panthers.
10 Eastern, Saints at Broncos. Saints -11.5, over under 57.
Broncos, +11.5.
Broncos, +11.5. I agree.
I'm going to go Saints.
Yeah, I think
Too
the
many
Saints.
points.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Saints.
In Denver. Mile high.
And they had a historical teams in the NBA Sims.
Historical teams?
Yeah, they actually had a historical team game today.
All right, who's this?
It was
Yeah.
2005-2006 Miami Heat against the 97-98 Jazz. Heat -3.5.
I'll take the Heat -3.5 and the over. I think it was 105 I seen.
105.5.
Rod happens to have that number. It's like, I happen to, if anyone's looking, I happen to have the total on the NBA historic sim game. Just, I got it right over. It's like,
What a coincidence.
it's kind of like my drug days. It's like, I'm looking for an aspirin. It's like, don't worry, it's in there. It's like, the hell is this shit? Look, man, I need an aspirin. Don't worry, it's already in there.
Aspirin's not a problem. Don't worry about it.
It's in there. So what?
I'll take the Heat. I'll go with the Heat on that one.
It's a really tough game.
I'll
That
take the Jazz.
was a really good Jazz team. Didn't they go to Game 7 against the Bulls?
I thought it was Game 6.
6. Paxson, right? Not Paxson. Steve Kerr, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Kerr did that. Again, that one hasn't been on the Last Dance yet. Will be though.
It will.
It will.
That last dance is awesome.
It's awesome. But anyways,
It is.
this show's really slipping. And like as we talked about at the beginning of the show and around, is that this show is all about these days. It's a lot, it's still just keeping in touch with everyone, letting everyone know that we're here, but at the same time, we're working on our tech stuff. So if you guys have any suggestions, if you don't like my blurry black background, if you'd rather have a clear background for me, if you think that, if you want us, if there's something you want us to talk about, anything like that, something you don't want us to talk about, whatever, let us know. But but what you'll see is over the next month, and it's just a matter of shipping and all this other stuff. But everyone's going to change their set, kind of like how I changed. If you look at my set 2 weeks ago and look at me today, and I still got a long way to go. For me, I think the next thing that we need to work on here is the sound quality. It's real bad, but we'll fix it. Anyways, we'll see you guys tomorrow. We're gonna have a topic. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it's not going to be Calgary.
Calgary?
Damn it, Chris! You do it every show.
All right, I'm gone.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. See you guys.